submitted for your consideration. Man has always challenged nature, thinking that they can tame the elements. But what happens when nature changes the rules and fights back? This is a Nature vs. Man 2, for one literary license podcast episode, exploring science fiction and horror, and weighing the outcomes of a dying planet, with your co-hosts, Keith Chalco, John Wilson, Vicky Ray, and Jesse Foltz. Man will forever be changed.
Hello, welcome to the Literary License Podcast and our Nature vs. Man episode. And today we're covering Night of the Living Dead from 1968 and Return of the Living Dead from 1985. And before we get started, let's find out who's with us. First, we have Matthew Brockmeyer. Hello, Matthew.
Hello. They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Shanta Pasuka, sorry. We got Shanta with us. Hello, Shanta.
Hello, this is not a costume. This is a way of life.
And Joe Randazzo's with us again. Hello, Joe.
Hello, everyone.
And our regular co-host, John Wilson. Hello, John.
Hello, folks.
And Vicky Ray.
Hi, everybody.
And myself, Keith Shago. And before we get started, let's find out what everyone's been up to, starting with Shanta. What have you been up to since last time we spoke to you?
More of the same. I'm the one half of the dynamic horror hosting duo Hex and Arcane. If you're interested, we are www.hexandarcane.com. So busy watching horror movies, hosting horror, watching more horror, reading horror, and trying to get some events in, little haunted stuff here and there.
Excellent. And you're also located on Amazon Prime in the UK for our UK listeners, because I've been watching you on that.
We are, yes. We're on Amazon Prime. You can find all the info on our website of everywhere you can watch us, from Kenosha, Chicago, YouTube, Amazon Prime, and a couple Roku channels, including Suburban Screams.
Cool. And we'll have all that in our show notes, so our listeners can follow you there.
There you go.
And what about yourself, Matthew Brockmeyer? What have you been up to since last time we spoke to you? I think the last time we spoke to you was Helter Skelter.
Yeah.
It's been a while. It's been a long while. Let's see. I got 2 books of short stories came out, Under Rotting Sky, and then more recently, Nest of Salt. Under Rotting Sky won a little award, and both those books had short stories picked for year's best hardcore horror, which was pretty cool. Awesome. And I finally got my marijuana farm legal.
Yeah.
So this is going to be the
I'll definitely be up to visit you.
All right, go on up. So this is going to be our first legal harvest this year, and we've been working really hard on that. And that's where I've been, but there's no internet out there right now, so.
But I've been following you. You guys are doing really well up there. It looks like you're having a good time, you and the kiddos and everybody.
We're definitely having a blast.
Do you think they'll ever do like a marijuana farm where they do like wine tasting?
You got it. To do all that, you have to like pave the road and like get it handicapped access. You know, it's so much to get tourists to come out there. I don't think you guys are all welcome, but I don't think it'll be open to tourists.
Nice. I'd love to.
It's out there. It's out there, way down a dirt road.
And what about yourself, Joe? What have you been up to?
Well, it's funny that I was on a podcast 10 years ago called They're Coming to Get You podcast. And my partner on that recently started a new podcast series and asked me to jump on with them. So we just recorded our first episode a couple of days ago. It's on a topic I'm passionate about, the importance of physical media. And I don't know when it's going to post yet. He's going to be doing some editing on it because we went off tangent a lot, and then it ended up being like 2.5 hours. So he's going to trim it down to like about an hour. And so I'm back doing that, and going to be watching a lot of movies. I just got the Jodorowsky movies that just got remastered in 4K. So can't wait to finally check out Fondo and Lease and see why it caused riots when it opened.
And what about yourself, John? What have you been up to?
Oh, still on the house for the hunt for the house, hunt for the house for the hunt. Still on the house hunt, looking to buy, and still been trying to focus on that and venturing out to Jersey. And then when I have time, I've been trying to watch some shows, watch some television. I finished the Creep Show series, which my friend kept going, you got to come back to. And I think I watched like the first episode. I was like, okay. So then I went on Shudder and watched the Creep Show series. It was fun.
How many were there? Because I'm only up to the third one.
Not that many. I think there's only the first season, 6 or 7 episodes. And then the second season is, I think they're rolling in one by one. So I think there's only 3 episodes for the second season right now. So
that's the last one where the girl gets killed by the ashtray, or she.
Yeah. Well, that was so good. Oh god.
I was like, oh damn, that was great. That was.
Well, that's my friend had showed me one, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back to this. It was the one with the gin, and he's funny because he goes, you're too good at guessing things, and I was like, oh, I bet you it's this, and he's like, shut up, because I already guessed like that one, like the gin, and then there was I forget the other part of that. Because it's 2 stories in one, so
yeah, she's wheeling her around in that chair trying to get her.
Which I was like, what were you gonna do with that body? I mean, I'm curious. How are you gonna get it down the lobby into the parking? Like, I was like, I'm really curious. It's
already become a shit show. There's just no out of this one.
Yeah, but
so far I've only seen up to the second episode of this season. That was the one with Keith David and Ashley Lawrence. That was kind of fun. I love the first episode of this season. The Kevin Dillon episode where he's like the abusive stepfather to the monster kid, and then the second half, which ties into the Evil Dead movies.
Yeah.
Fucking fantastic. So I can't wait to watch. I'm probably going to watch the third one today, actually. I forgot it came out probably yesterday.
Yeah,
I have only seen the first season, so try not to get spoilers.
Oh, la.
Yeah.
You have to watch that
first. Well.
You have to watch the first episode of the season with Atticus. He's going to love it.
And what about yourself, Vix? What are you even up to?
Not a whole lot. Just biding my time to go home and see mom and dad. Now that everybody's all, safe, like in New York. Just doing that race thing with Asher because it's April. It's always bad during the month of April. But I watched a couple of those movies. I don't know. Night of the Lepus. I told Joe about that one. I can't get my life back, but it was freaking hysterical. I mean, it was about killer bunnies with big teeth,
big sharp pointy teeth.
It's like run away. That's the only thing kept going through my head when I was watching it. But I mean, they take all these bunnies and the end of this movie, I don't even care if it's a spoiler alert. All these rabbits are getting killed and electrocuted in front of all these kids at the drive-in. And it's just like, it was such a Keith movie. He needs to watch it.
But spoiler alert for a movie that's been around for 50 years.
Hell, though. I was not high enough to watch it. But there was the Midnight Meat Train because you guys were making fun of it. So I had to watch that just because Bradley Cooper would not be in a bad movie, right?
No, never.
But I actually loved it until the end. I didn't like the ending. But then I started watching them. I think it's on Netflix, or is it on?
What, the French film Them or the TV series?
No, it's a series. I think it starts out with a black family and they move into this house and
I think it's on Amazon. It looks really good. It's like takes place in like the 50s, right?
Yeah. And that's all I'm going to say about that because I haven't finished watching it all, but it looked pretty promising because I tried to get into that one. You suggested, what was it? Oh God, it's like with Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, the Irreplaceables or whatever.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
The Irregulars.
The Irregulars.
They are replaceable right now.
Yeah, they are replaceable.
I tried. I really tried.
Yeah, I tried as well. I think it's one of those shows that they're trying to push a woke thing through with it, and it's kind of ruining the series sort of thing a bit. So.
Was that based on the Baker Street Irregulars?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh, cool.
And I mean, it could have been quite good, but they're trying to push this message through, which is kind of taking away from the stories. Where it's like, I think it's important to have messages and things, but I think you need to go the Twilight Zone way of doing it without pointing a finger in people's faces.
Yeah, so heavy-handed.
Yeah, and it's a bit heavy-handed, a bit like a John Peel TV show, but Jordan Peele TV show. It's like, So, well, myself, I watched a fantastic movie on Amazon Prime that's up for some awards with Rosamund Pike called I Care for You. It's supposed to be a dark comedy, but it really makes you kind of angry because it's about a woman who basically finds old people, becomes a guardian, rapes them of all their money and puts them into a home and makes a lot of money off it. But it's a really good, it has Diane Weiss in it. She's excellent. And Peter Dinklage as well.
I love
it. Isn't there a series similar to that on Netflix? I thought there's one that's something.
Yeah, it's on Netflix in the US and Amazon Prime here in the UK.
Maybe that's what it is. I saw the trailer for it. I was like, oh my God, this looks really twisted.
Well, the conservatorship's a hot topic right now with Britney Spears. You know, it's a really timely show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's happened in real life a lot anyway.
Well, there's a lot of ways to exploit that kind of situation. So, you know, but it's kind of funny because I didn't see the dark humor. It's a fantastic. I love the movie. It was fantastic. I was glued to it all the way through.
Right.
And Diana Weiss is one of her best performances, and of course Peter Dinklage is always good. And Rosamund Pike. No one plays after Gone Girl. No one plays a bitch like her, do they? I mean, she's a great actress there. But yeah, it's kind of weird. It's like. From everyone that I talked to who's seen it, it makes them really, really, you're watching it and you're getting really, really angry and very, very perturbed by it. But it's very, very good. So I highly recommend that. And due to COVID, I'm able to watch all the Oscar movies that are nominated because of Netflix and Amazon. So yay. And other than that, our lockdown's lifted now. Things are going back to normal. All shielding people are out and about now. So yeah, the world will
make it over in Christmas time after all. I'm sick of they keep canceling our tickets. So
well, I'm fully vaccinated.
Yeah, we're 80% vaccinated in this country. We got 20% more of the population than everyone in this country's been vaccinated.
I didn't want to get vaccinated, awesome. But I figured my life is half over anyway, so who gives a shit?
I get my second shot on Thursday, so I'm almost fully vaxxed.
Nice.
Well, I had one patient basically crying that she didn't want to get vaccinated because she was going to get nanotechnology put into her and it was going to kill her.
I got my chip and I'm all fine.
Yeah. I said to her, and all I said to my patient goes, listen, babe, I go, we basically have a computer system that doesn't even work in the NHS. And second of all, only the good die young. She'll be here forever. So don't worry. Just get the vaccination.
I know. If you got Alexa, you already have your, everything. They listen to everything.
I was going to say, you have a cell phone. Your cell phone's tracking everything you do anyway. So.
Who gives a shit? They know everything about us anyway. It's like, who cares? I don't care.
There was one day that Shanta came over a couple of years ago. And we were hanging out. We got around to talking about Elvira. And for the next 3 weeks, everything that I would see on social media was trying to sell me some Elvira merchandise. So don't complain to me about a chip being put in you because whatever you're volunteering everything anyway already.
Yeah.
Oh, those algorithms, everything. I mean, I got a VPN and it still happens.
I feel like they're just going to build you. You give them your eyes, your fingerprints, your voice. It's pretty much they'll just rebuild you some way, shape, or form. We don't need you anymore. Thanks.
Yeah.
I got a notification the other day that my friend Jeremy posted a picture on Facebook that I might be in, asking if I want to tag myself. And I'm
facial algorithm, yeah.
No, dude, that's a phishing scam, dude.
Is
Be careful. Yes, you get those, and then it says put in your Facebook password to see it, and then they get your password, and then they do it to all these other people.
This wasn't one of those. This was a notification on the app itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't like an email or a message or anything like
that.
So
that was at least a true one, yeah.
Yeah, that was actually correct because I was in the picture. But yeah, I'm really careful about that. Like if anybody sends me a link and it seems like out of the ordinary, I ask them immediately or I'll text them somewhere else. If let's say I get a new friend request from Vicky or Keith or something today, and I'm kind of suspicious about it, I'll ask them, so how did we meet?
Yeah.
Right.
I just don't even click on anything. I don't click on anything anymore. Like my friends will send me stuff and I'm like, I love you guys. I'm not clicking on this. I'm like, it's not worth my,
Those chain letters, just like, no wonder God hates me because I never forward them,
Yeah, I had a
they go with your ego. I always get them and they say, you're on YouTube. They're talking about you on YouTube, and it's been watched 500,000 times. I
got two of these today saying this looks like you, and it's just like, fuck, man, y'all got hacked again.
Falling for it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, how do you keep falling for it? I had one guy that I used to work with that I had to block because he would keep sending me the click here to get a free iPad. And I'm like, dude, did you get hacked? And then he'll keep doing it again. I'm like, dude, how many times can you fall for it?
Well, my friend was complaining about a text that he kept getting, and what does he do? He copies it and sends it to a group of us. And so immediately afterward, I get a text from this, and I was like, I'm going to kill you right now. And he goes, why? I'm like, because you just copied it and sent it to me, and now I'm getting it. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, I asked my fake relative if we were celebrating Christmas at their house this year, and they're like, yeah, of course. And I'm like, you're Jewish.
You're like, no.
They're like, oh, it's just a small celebration. I'm like, yeah, sure. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then they'll ask you like, my family's starving. Can you send me money right afterwards?
Yeah, exactly.
No, they ask.
If I send you $20,000, could you, keep $50,000 for me? Yeah. No.
I get hi, and I write hi. They go, I love you, and I said, oh, here we go. And they go, can you help me? It's like, I'm not sending you money. I'm not sending you money. I'm sorry.
Can I send you money? All you got to do is give me your bank account information.
The one that always makes me laugh is the car warranty. I'm like, who exactly are you trying to reach? I mean, it's like every time the phone rings, it's you have to extend your car warranty. I'm like, can you get a new chick? Like, it's always a car warranty,
They're
like,
getting crap.
I get those.
They're getting crap.
I don't answer my phone anymore.
Yeah.
It's that or it's the IRS is coming after you.
Yeah, we get them here with the sheriff. The sheriff has this and that, and you got to pay this fine. It's all bullshit.
We get companies calling us going, oh, we heard you were in an accident. And I said, no, I wasn't in an accident. Oh, maybe next time. It's like, what does that mean?
Maybe next
Sorry, too early. Miss Cleo was wrong.
That's terrible.
Well, that brings us to Night of the Living Dead. Night of the Living Dead is a 1968 American independent horror film written, directed, photographed, and edited by George A. Romero, co-written by John Russo, and starring Duane Jones and Judith O'Dea. The story follows 7 people who are trapped in a rural farmhouse in western Pennsylvania, which is under assault by an enlarging group of cannibalistic undead ghouls. It's basically based roughly on Romero's one of his favorite films, which is Richard Matheson's 1954 novel I Am Legend, which has been filmed 3 or 4 times. And Night of the Living Dead came out in October 1st, 1968, and it eventually grossed $12 million domestically and $18 million internationally, earning more than 250 times its budget and making it one of the most profitable film productions ever made at the time. Released shortly prior to the adoption of the Motion Picture Association American rating system, the film attracted widespread controversy and negative reviews upon its initial release for its explicit violence and gore, but it soon garnered a cult following. And Night of the Living Dead would actually be remade quite a few times due to copyright lapses, which people, if you're out there and you're working on stuff, copyright your stuff, because otherwise people are going to be stealing your stuff.
Well, isn't it actually public domain by accident?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
public domain. Shanta would know.
They forgot to put in the copyright notice in it, so it was public domain, which is how we showed it on Hex and Arcane, which is an episode.
So what we're going to do is going to cut to the trailer of Night of the Living Dead, and be right back.
Welcome to a night of total terror. Night of the living dead, the dead who live on living flesh. The dead whose haunted souls hunt the living whose bodies are the only food for these ungodly creatures. Night of the Living Dead. A bizarre adventure in fear. An experience in shock, more shattering than your strangest nightmare. Night of the living dead. A night with the dead who cannot die. A night of total terror. Night of the living dead.
Hello, welcome back to the Literary Lessons Podcast. We're discussing Night of the Living Dead from 1968. So starting with you, Joe, what are your thoughts of Night of the Living Dead?
One of the greatest horror movies ever made. I love this movie so much that 10 or 11 years ago, when Stephen Finley and I decided we were going to do a horror podcast, we called it They're Coming to Get You podcast. Obviously, after the iconic line of Johnny teasing Barbara in the beginning. It's before this, like, zombie movies were like I Walked with a Zombie, White Zombie, Plague of the Zombies. They were all like voodoo zombies and like magic and stuff. This kind of changed the way zombie movies are made, and it's never this has been it since it came out. So it's been super, super influential. Spawned an even better sequel. I'm going to let other people talk because I'm just going to gush about this movie for 2 hours if I'm left unchecked. So
I love that. Oh, sorry.
What about yourself, Shanta? What are your initial views?
So I first saw this years ago, and then it was one of those movies where the horror community just raves about it. Everybody loves it. I haven't met anybody who doesn't. So when I rewatched it again, I was like, I am going to very critically rewatch this and see if it's actually a good movie or if it's something that everyone just claims to love because they have to, because it's the iconic movie. And I love zombies. So I was like, I'm going to really watch this. And it held up. And I was like, wow, this is a really great movie. So I am joining the throngs of people who adore this movie.
And what about yourself, Matthew Brockmeyer? What are your thoughts, your initial thoughts?
Well, I always thought Romero's films were interesting because of the social commentary. And, it seems like it's a film about racial injustice. But I guess if you do a little research, it wasn't written that way. They just happened to get a black guy that was their friend to be in it. And, because he's like a martyr. He's needlessly killed at the end, and there's the ending shots with the rednecks and the hooks and stuff. And, but then, and I always think of Dawn of the Dead about social commentary about commercialism, in the shopping mall, and Day of the Dead I think about is commentary about the military industrial complex. But sometimes then I wonder if any of that even was really meant to be. But I guess that's the nature of art. You see what you want to see.
I think in the latter movies it was. I think in this case, the legend goes, Duane Jones just happened to be the best actor of the group that put it together. I think it just ended up being a happy accident.
Unintentional racial commentary.
Yeah.
But it does say a lot. It's a powerful film.
And I mean,
this was a Judy Garland, Mickey Rooney kind of thing where let's put a show on in the barn kind of movie. I mean, that's how it was put together.
And it was also
1968. What a year, man! There was a lot going on.
Yeah, the evolution of that character was interesting because it was meant to be like kind of like a trucker, really not that smart, and he was like, "Nope, I'm not playing it that way." And I think what is very interesting about this film is that a lot of the actors were giving room to improv, so most of it was improv. And now knowing that, I never knew. I've seen this movie like at least 6 times.
Yeah.
Now knowing that, I now feel like I need to go back and be like, "Oh wow, that's really impressive to be." Here's the motivation, just do it. Like whatever you want to say, however you want to say it and get to that point, let's do it, and
Barbara too, she was supposed to be a lot stronger character, and they ended up liking that she played a more scared, helpless girl, and it worked for the film, but she was written to be a lot more.
Quite a difference between that Barbara and Return of the Living Dead Barbara. But I saw George Romero was doing an interview, and he was talking about Duane, the black actor, and he was really upset with doing all the hostile, violent scenes because he was a real gentle person apparently, and he didn't really want to kill anybody, but he finally got over it. But it is what it is. watching him get shot in the end, he finally makes it to the morning and all these yahoos shoot him. And it's like, oh, don't run for the pile. You know, it's like,
one of the things I should have looked into it to see if my memory here is right. I think I remember seeing an interview with either Striner, Russo, Romero, one of them, where they said the day they stopped principal photography, they were wrapping everything up and putting everything in the car. They turned on the radio in the car, and that's when they heard that Martin Luther King had been murdered.
Oh wow!
I think it was like the last day of shooting or something. I'm gonna I do have to look that up because I might be wrong on that.
Yeah, well, on the Wikipedia, they said reporters had asked him if it had anything to do with his assassination, true. And they said no. We were already in post production at that point, so that was already done and filmed and in the can. So it might have coincided with that last day.
That's what it was.
Production. Yeah,
it was. They finished the first cut.
Yeah,
I think the day Martin Luther King was assassinated. I think that's what they said. Is they finished the first cut.
Yeah,
God, it's almost like outside forces were like making that movie happen like that. It's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also I think you have to kind of look at the time period between 1963 and 1970. I mean, having things happening were quite a daily occurrence during that time. It's like something, you know, between that and social rioting and assassinations and you know, cults killing people and, you know, so on and so forth, and serial killers running rapid and women, you know, and then you had your women's liberation going on at the same time. And, you know, there's a lot going on during that little, you know, 7-year period there. So, you know,
wait a bit.
I'm curious in the phrase, "They're coming to get you, Barbara."
Right.
If that is in the Guinness Book of World Records because I've heard that phrase. And the funny thing was, I rewatched this on Monday. That following day, I'm watching a gamer, and she's playing this game, and out of nowhere, I just am doing something, and I hear her go, "They're coming to get you, Barbara." And I was like, "What the hell?" like that's how much I feel like so many people use that phrase. And I wonder if they even knew that was going to be the thing, right? Because it's just so off the cuff a remark that I'm sure none of them thought was going to be worth anything, right? 2 cents. But how funny how everyone does it. It's like hysterical.
Well, it was so unusually done for something of that time too. And they don't really show the violence with the violence. You know, when the little girl kills her mother, you see the spade going, but you really don't actually see the flesh and the metal connect. So he did leave a little bit for imagination.
Speaking of
she is such an iconic image today. She's so cool looking, scary.
Yeah.
Speaking of little girl, I was reading too about how Roger Ebert was talking about being in this in the theater when watching it, and how just the expectations of it, not knowing how it impact, because this is pre the rating system, and how like he looks over and he sees this like 9-year-old girl just like frozen, like watching this film, and he's like, how this psychologically impacts a child's mind who, you know, at that time thinks things are kind of real, but like the dead coming alive is like a new thing, right? So this poor kid is going to be like traumatized.
I always took my kids to horror movies. I was the bad mother that did the R-rated movies. I didn't care. They're okay.
I tried to force my kid to watch it. That opening scene scared him so much he made me turn it off. I was like,
with the old zombie guy, and she's chasing him through the
graveyard.
Yeah.
I think you also have to kind of look at the context of when this was released, because at this time you got to remember what horror films were up until 1968.
Vincent Price.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, and I mean, you know, the probably the ones that were actually getting the most criticisms as far as being the most lurid were the Hammer horror films, which weren't really that lurid. Had a lot of bosoms on show and a lot of, you know, regular blood as sort of thing. But you know, and here you got this film coming out that's basically was cheap to show at multiplexes. Parents are dropping their kids off, and then
don't enjoy the show, kids.
Don't forget the naked zombie that everybody said they had a hard time focusing on their lines or their movement because they were looking at the naked zombie when they're trying.
What was the Roman guy doing there? I never got that one. There's a guy in the Roman toga and stuff.
I think that was meant to be a hospital, like someone coming out of a hospital morgue with the sheet wrapped around him.
Roman toga.
I laugh because I mean the first scene, what makes it also very scary is that it's during the day when that happens, and so that's unusual too. Most of the things that go bump in the night are the things that scare you, like the things the unknown. So in broad daylight, something like that happening, you're like, whoa, okay, did not see that coming.
That
It's
is
interesting because you just see him in the background and you don't think anything of it. Well, the first time you see the movie, if you don't know anything about it, you see the guy in the background, you don't think anything of it. Johnny's making a little joke about it because, hey, it's just a guy walking down the street, and the danger is coming closer and closer, and you don't know.
Yeah,
that's what made the entire thing interesting to me.
It's funny because you mentioned,
and she's like embarrassed. She's like she's like, oh, you're embarrassing me at first,
Yeah. It reminds me of a movie that It Follows, which came out in 2014.
Which one, John?
It's called It Follows, and it is this insidious.
That's a great film.
It's such a great film, but that scene I connected with this film because of that. The man wearing the loin, whatever, the cloth, or whatever, walking, or it's just this thing in the background that you're noticing is coming towards him, but they're just kind of having a conversation. Nothing's wrong, and something is just not quite right. And they're kind of like stumbling along, and they're not like it's like a it's funny. It just reminded me of that film.
Oh, I haven't seen this one before.
It's fantastic. I loved it.
It looks good.
It's like a motif on sexual diseases.
Yeah,
exactly. They turn it into a horror film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You pass it on sexually. You pass on the curse.
Everyone
sexually.
you slept with, you're sleeping with everyone they slept with. You're sleeping with everyone they slept with, so on and so forth. It follows that kind of trope,
great.
So.
And the lead in it is amazing. She's just fantastic, and she's every kind of other movie she's done similar to this. She's just really good at playing those types of characters, like the final girl.
And a lot of daylight shots, like you're talking about. A lot of it takes place during the day. Like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. A lot of it's during the day. It's something about that bright light and the fact that it's not spooky nighttime makes it, I don't know, more realistic and garish.
In the daylight,
it catches you off guard. I mean, there's a scene that's in that other movie that I was talking about that's in broad daylight on a beach, and it literally just catches you so off guard that it just shakes you. You're like, oh my god, because you're expecting everything to happen at night. Which in this film, it's clear that once it gets night, it gets worse, and they're now trying to fight this impending doom that's coming to them. Which. Again, I think that's the first time I've ever seen something like that where you're holding fort, right? And you're knowing something's coming, you're waiting for it to come and get to you and get there. And then how do you defend yourself? And then there's the terror within the house, because then at this point, there's sort of a family that doesn't give a crap about any of them. It's like, we just are going to bunker down. You guys can do whatever the hell you want. We're staying here and we're going to protect ourselves. And so it creates a sort of new level of world division, right, that starts to happen, that is emulated throughout The Walking Dead and all these other series of, it's not necessarily the zombies, that's the problem, it's kind of what's happening inside the house that's the problem.
Right. Yes. Like the biker gang in Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
But I think what you have to also remember is that I think this film also looks at, social commentary, that basically when a group of people are being threatened, do you fight for the greater good or do you fight for yourself? And that's pretty much what the zombie film emulates over and over and over again. And another thing that it does emulate as well, which does show when Johnny comes back, is that basically, what do you have to do when you actually faced with something that's now coming, something that's family related or someone who's very close to you comes back and is trying to kill you? Now you're killing something that's more personable to you now.
Yeah.
And so it does have that. Yeah. And also gives a social commentary on mass mentality. When a mass group of people decide to go against you, what do you do?
Yeah.
So it also comments on that as well.
Dehumanizing human, like the human form. So it has it looks like a human in a lot of ways, but you can sort of dehumanize and distance yourself from that.
Yeah, especially the parents of the daughter, that they probably knew something was going to happen to her, but what could you do but wait to see if something happens, right? You're not going to be like, put her down, you're going to take her out and throw her outside and, shoot her.
Yeah, as a parent, you're going to fight for your child, zombie or no. It's just like, if anybody's going to plug somebody, it's going to be me and not you, But I mean, nobody think about that though. Your mom and dad, all they think about is protecting their child.
Yeah.
That's all you think about, no matter what. Yeah. Even when they're evil, it's just like you still love that child for the most part. So
what about the Dawn of the
watching the parents go through that.
The Dawn of the Dead remake with the baby being born scene? Oh man, when he got his wife down there.
Oh fuck! I forgot about that. That was bad.
Two of my favorite movie scenes of all time. So insane.
He had her all tied down and shit. And
Yeah.
you were kind of hoping the baby was going to be normal, but you kind of knew. It's like, nah.
You knew it, yeah.
You know.
But this is what I was talking about earlier, where this movie has gotten to like it changed the way the zombie movie was made, and a lot of these things became tropes in like every other zombie movie we've seen. The child coming back as a zombie was brought back in Dawn of the Dead, where the cop has to push them off and machine gun them. Burial Ground, the Italian movie where the midget playing the little boy becomes a zombie. That one's a little more unintentionally comedic. And then when you have
Dead Alive by Peter Jackson.
Yeah. Dead Alive does it. And then the people stuck in like the one, people kind of having to retreat into one location became like every single zombie movie ever made after this. Yeah. It wasn't this before that. Even the most recent zombie movie before this that I could think of was probably the Hammer Films Plague of the Zombies. And it wasn't like, it didn't create that like claustrophobic feeling like this does. And like every zombie movie since has done. So it really just completely changes the way everything is done in the subgenre. And I think because of that, you talk about people loving it, it showed how you can make a really solid movie that has, even if it's accidental, social commentary, and you can do it really cheaply in like one or two locations. And it's brilliant for that.
Another trope that I think they nailed is the nihilism. That the fact that everybody dies, like the lead character dies, and like Dawn of the Dead, everybody dies. It's like it's become a zombie trope, or you can't survive it. It's an unsurvivable situation. Yeah.
And we're all obsessed with zombies now, and this movie kind of gave birth to the myth that we're all obsessed with, because like Joe said earlier, it was just voodoo zombies before, and now it's like they've created all different ways now, but the essence of zombies has been the same since this movie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I also think it's like in this, it's hard because you don't have enough time to character build, but you do wonder what the zombies are, right? The characters of the zombie. And the more eccentric, like the Toga Man, like the more eccentric the character of a zombie, you wonder what's the little history there. And I think it was one of the most brilliant things that the Walking Dead series did was a short series, which was literally on the zombie in the first season. That was a half zombie that was on a street that you might remember was crawling towards Rick, and then Rick kills
bicycle zombie. I met her.
Yeah, so it was amazing because they did a whole like very small series, like a very I think it was like 5 to 10 minutes per episode, and there was like 6 episodes of how did she become that, and it's heartbreaking when you watch it. You just go, oh my god. And then you see the end. What was brilliant about it, you didn't know where it was going. You didn't know if she was a survivor or she was going to be a zombie. Once you realize what she becomes, you're like, this is gut-wrenching and so sad, because you remember that scene of him killing her, and they gave that zombie a whole story arc, which is fantastic. I think
was still upset about the horse.
Yeah. Oh, the horse. Yeah.
The horse to get eaten.
Well, that horse had no hope.
2 horses got eaten in that series.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Walking Dead since the first season, but I would occasionally see like just Greg Nicotero. I just love him so much because of like all the times he like you'll see some of the zombies and they'll pay homage to like some older film. Yeah. And recently I had shown my roommate the Amicus Tales from the Crypt, and there's the Peter Cushing zombie in Tales from the Crypt, and it's recreated in The Walking Dead, and he had noticed that, and I'm like, wait a second, yeah, and sure enough, it was Greg Nicotero wanting to pay homage to Peter Cushing in Tales from the Crypt and that. So it was super cool how that show does that.
Like in Dawn of the Dead, they have the helicopter scene, and then in 28 weeks later, they have a helicopter that kills like 100 zombies.
Yeah. That was one of the greatest scenes in the movie.
I have to say, like that up the ante. You're like, okay, what are they going to do now?
I'm just wondering.
And then Zombieland or whatever came out. Like, oh, here we go.
I love that movie.
That was so funny.
Yeah. But I thought it was funny how they got all the rednecks in the end, and they portray them like Mississippi rednecks or something. You got that guy's got the 4 cigars in his hat, and he goes, "Yeah, throw that one on the burn pile." And they're out there, some old ladies meandering. They just start, blowing them apart, and they're enjoying it more so on the other movie than they were, the newer version of it. but with the 1991, they really get into the yahoos in that one.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's also taking back yours, right? Like you got invaded by and we don't know how that happened, right? So we kind of give an allude in the next film why it happens, but in this we don't know why the dead are rising.
No,
so
they don't really say.
Proud. They're getting really proud of being like, oh, we took back our land, we killed the zombies, woohoo, we won.
Yeah.
In the news reports, they mentioned something about a satellite coming back, but that's never. Yeah. Nothing ever comes to that. I don't remember in the other movies. I don't think anything ever came of that idea that like something happened from space. Because even one of the news reporters is questioning why they would want to talk to somebody in the space program about an earthbound problem. Nothing ever comes of it. We don't know if they were going to go in a different direction or not.
Well, I think they wanted to. They just didn't have the funding for it. They did want to make it like an alien.
I like it eventually. I think it's better.
You have to look at that. Basically, you're only stuck with these characters for less than 24 hours.
Yeah.
So by the time that you'll get all the information about why this is happening, it's not going to happen within the first 24 hours. I mean, look at COVID. It took them 3 months to figure out what's going on here. So do you really think something like this is going to happen?
Just Google.
What?
So none of them had an iPhone. They couldn't just Google, like, hey, what's going on? Hey, Siri, what's happening in the world right now? Why are the dead rising?
But I also think that another thing that I think that George Romero does happen is the primal fear about, I mean, if you think about how the zombies actually kill you. Not by knives, but by their bare hands, tearing into your flesh and tearing you apart and eating you alive, which has probably got to be one of the worst ways to ever think about dying.
Because they like to go for the belly first, kind of, sort of. So you're watching yourself get eaten.
Well, you always go for the soft. You always go for the soft tissue first. Don't you? You don't want to go into the skull. There's too much there. You go into the belly.
Return of the Living Dead. Sorry.
Yeah, that's true. Brains.
They went right for the skull in that one.
Send more paramedics.
Unfortunately, those zombies would die today if that was the case. But anyway.
Is this a vegan brain? I can't eat it. Sorry.
Vegan.
Unless it's a Linda McCartney brain.
This might have accidentally made a lot of people vegetarians.
Yeah.
It could have.
Yeah.
I think we need to mention that basically that what the zombies were chewing on were animal innards from the butcher that went off.
Yeah.
They weren't like they were off.
Sauce.
The chocolate sauce, that's right, because it was black and white. You couldn't tell. The little girl ate leftover lunch when she was eating her dad.
They said they were not faking being sick from that.
That was gross. I mean, that was such a pioneer.
What happened was they went to the butcher, got a bunch of animal innards, sort of thing, brought it there. And actually, because they bought it in the beginning of the day, it was sat in the sun all day long. So by the time they started doing the night sequences, it's like, it went kind of putrid.
Very vocal vegetarian, and I could not act that. If I had to eat anything that was meat, I would have to pass on the role.
This is giving me a Texas Chainsaw, flashback when we were talking about that and him having to wear
sausages.
The sausages.
The sauce that upsets me a lot. See those
they said it was like 110 degrees in that room.
Oh God, there's flies all over that shit.
Yeah.
And that's Texas, and I know there's flies. Those flies just freaking find you. I don't know how they find you, but they do down here.
Well, the question was what was scarier? Gunner dressed as Leatherface or the smell of him?
Oh yeah.
Smell.
Didn't they douse him with a bunch of entrails and stuff to make him? Wasn't that what they said?
Yeah, they put all that stuff on him, and he had to have that mask. He had to keep wearing it, and they didn't wash it, so he just was like, "You can't wash it."
Yeah.
Like,
why would they make a movie like that in the dead of summer in frickin' Texas, man? Like,
it gives characters
when the cast is available and the time frame's there, you just go for it. So
DIY, man.
It's brutal.
I mean, it's quite interesting that George Romero used a film noir style to show humanity's nightmare against itself, its own alienation within itself, and I thought that was quite effective using.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at, he was an advertising director, wasn't he? Writing,
making commercials.
Yeah.
And,
well, I think everyone
look at the way they actually filmed it.
It's kind of like every man
Excuse
for
me?
themselves when there's something like this happens. Just look at COVID. Everybody took all the flipping toilet paper. Just like, it's like they didn't care if you could wipe your bum. You're not getting any. I mean, literally took all the time. I've never seen anything like that in my entire life.
How much do these people go to the bathroom if they needed that much toilet paper for what they were basically saying at the time was going to be a 2-week shutdown?
Yeah, so they just clean out the stores of toilet paper. Now,
it tells you
what's
important, toilet paper.
They can't sell it now because everybody has so much of it now down here that's just sitting on the shelves because everybody's got a garage.
Well, in the UK, what they're doing is people who overbought food and had to waste it, and some food that had been wasted, they're now giving a 10,000 pound fine.
Wow, that's amazing.
So because it's like they had people like going on the news like throwing all this food away after a week, like overbuying and just throwing it all away, and it's just kind of like really horrible.
People watch too many movies like us, I guess.
I didn't know this.
But it does show you.
Hey,
about,
come on now, don't say that. Yeah, that's my life, watching movies.
But it does show you about humanity. That man pretty much thinks of himself in any kind of setting. Certainly, it's very rare that you get a group mentality that everyone's looking out for their neighbors and stuff like this. And I mean, it's kind of been proven time and time again through history.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Yeah, and the zombie film really shows that so well.
Yeah,
zombie movies are art movies.
Yeah.
They're survival movies. I can honestly say I've watched all The Walking Dead. I could survive anything.
Except the slow walking zombies that come. I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, it's literally called The Walking Dead. How do so many people get ripped apart by a walking zombie? Because it's like, I'm not looking where I'm going, and they turn around and a zombie goes, bah!
It's usually a stupid error in judgment. Now, if you have the Train to Busan, if you have those zombies, you're fucked. There's just no hope.
They got the numbers. It's the numbers.
I also love that. I love the fast zombie when they're like in rage mode. Oh God, it's so intense.
But to be honest, if you're going to look at it from a pathological point of view, that if a body's been dead for a period of time, they're not going to be able to move fast.
Yeah, atrophy.
Rigor mortis sets in, and there's no animation that's going to sit there and bring your muscles to be ample ever again once the rigor mortis sets in, because they turn to stone basically.
When they're fast ones, I think usually they're infected and not actually dead.
That's
like 28 days later, they're not actually zombies because they're not dead.
Yeah.
Right.
And what Matthew was saying is the problem is that it's basically a cat and mouse game. And the thing is that once you can run away from them for so long, but the thing is, you're looking at a machine or zombies and say that do not run out of energy. They don't need to stop for food. They don't need anything. And if they start gathering en masse, and eventually they're going to get you into a corner. And then what happens when you find yourself in that corner? No matter how many times you swing an axe or how many bullets, you're going to run out eventually.
You light them on fire.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Unless you're Ben in this movie, in which case you just hide in the basement and then they go away by morning.
Yeah, that's it.
Or the rednecks come and shoot them.
They moved on. Yeah, I was going to say, I think the rednecks came in and just...
By the time they got there, though, the zombies had all cleared out.
No, they cleared them out. Let's be clear on this.
They
were dead in a pile behind them.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is that they were a moving mass anyway, a bit like locusts sort of thing.
Yeah.
So basically, is once the zombies have cleared out, they probably kept moving sort of thing. The problem is that it's not the problem, but this film is set in a rural setting, so therefore you're going to get a different approach than if it was an urban setting.
True.
The urban setting was going to make it a bit more.
Claustrophobic.
We want to make it more claustrophobic, but let's put it this way: they're going to be a lot more en masse. There'd be a difference between like having a zombie apocalypse in small town USA compared to Chicago or New York City.
Yeah,
right.
They would be divided, right? Like whereas what led them to the farm was basically Barbara trying to run away. So like that's what got her. There, versus a city.
The zombies hit the farmland before Barbara got there, because you have to remember
on the radio, but they turned the radio off. Something was going down.
No, we have to also remember that when Barbara got there and she ran upstairs, there was a half-eaten corpse there. So someone ate the previous occupant there.
Got it.
We don't know that was a zombie.
No, I'm saying that
sure.
it wasn't a zombie, but it was an eaten corpse.
Ben,
Farms have some weird stuff. Have you seen it?
That was someone's snack for later, in case they got hungry.
It takes all kinds of critters to make farmer fritters.
Yeah, motel hell. Yeah.
Or maybe, wait, it could have been the
Meat,
husband
man's gotta eat.
Yeah, it could have been the husband blew the person's head off to just get their gun because they were running from zombies.
Well, they did set a couple of them on fire, and I guess some of the crew members accidentally set themselves on fire during filming, and I guess they just kept rolling.
literally rolling.
That's a riot.
Tuck and roll.
There was a Bill Hinsman. He played the cemetery ghoul. That guy had staying power anyway. He volunteered to be set on fire.
Yeah, the way he gets back up, he just pops back up when he's fighting with Johnny. That is amazing. Like, Johnny will knock him down. By the time Johnny takes 2 steps, he's bolting back up to his feet and wrestling with him. Like, whoa!
I was saying, he had staying power. That dude did.
Yeah.
And then you saw Barbara's brother, which was kind of telling, and he's the one that actually takes her out and kills her.
Yeah.
That was kind of sorry. But he said they were coming to get her brothers.
Mm. But I also think that was quite a smart move as far as on the script and filmmaker, because that actually shows is that once they come back, once people that come back will come back for you. And because that's probably the only scene that you actually. I mean, okay, we get the baby girl, you get the daughter sort of thing, but you don't really get it until that's pretty much the scene that pretty much brings it back. Yeah, because even the daughter. I mean, the only problem that I have with the daughter is that basically you don't really know much about her. It's like you kind of have an ugly man. Stepford wife, and then you have this daughter dressed up as Jan Brady, moaning on a butcher's table in the basement. You're gonna go, well, you don't really know much about.
It's Marsha, shut up.
I hated her husband. What was that guy's name? What a douche canoe he was.
Cooper. Mr.
Cooper. You wanted him to die. I don't know what you guys, but I was like, somebody kill him now.
He's a dick. But in all fairness, when they got in, what did Ben do? Ben headed to the fucking cellar and picked it up. So
Ben's like, I got this.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if they listen to the dickhead guy and not listen to the Duane Jones character, chances are they might have made it through it.
Not with zombie daughter in the basement. What are you talking about?
Killing one baby girl is a lot different than killing a horde, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because the thing is, if the mother wasn't down there with the daughter on her own, chances are that probably might never have happened. They would have seen it coming, sort of thing.
Also, something was funny about this is when word got out that they were going to have a naked girl do part of this movie. I guess the town came, lawn chairs and shit, watching them film the scene.
Boobs, they're the best special effect you could have in your movie.
I heard it was titillating for them.
Oh no.
I could see when the trailer to Deadly Xmas came out a couple years ago, and Dave and I posted the trailer, it got fucking 3 or 4 views. When I posted it later that day and mentioned that there were boobs in the trailer, it just I'm like, this is the internet. You can't just go look at boobs anywhere else. Whatever. We mentioned that there was a topless woman in the trailer. All of a sudden,
that's how you
went
right
up.
What's that?
Variety.
Yeah, I guess
they're boobs I haven't seen. So yeah,
that's true.
There's another thing that strikes me about Mr. Cooper and his wife. Ben wrestles the gun away from him, shoots him. And the response from Helen is just it's like no response. Her husband just got shot in front of her. She doesn't seem to give a shit.
I wouldn't have either. I would have been applauding.
He probably was a dick, so she probably was like, "Oh, too bad. Oh, I got to go take care of my daughter. Bye."
He's probably wondering where he kept the money.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's kind of funny in the end of the newer version. Then I was at 90 or 89 when they did that. But he just pops down from out of the attic. It's like, oh, you made it, and she just blows a hole in his head. Just like, fuck you, Cougar.
Watch that one. It's been a long time.
Best thing ever.
That one's quite hard one to find, actually.
Is it?
The Tom Savini one? Yeah, it's not as common to find as some of the other versions that people have bastardized. I mean, there's a Night of the Living Dead where someone's actually filmed their own epilogues and prologues and put that in there with some really
there were I had so many home video versions of this because I was so hardcore about this movie. I bought a 2-disc set because John Carradine hosted it. And it's just John Carradine ranting for 2 minutes in the beginning of it, and then cut to the movie, and that's it. There's one where like they edited in Debbie Rochon and a bunch of other people that came out in the late 90s.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
There's a remake with Sid Haig, which I've never seen.
Yeah.
That's good. I like it. It's really good.
it.
I actually really love it. He plays a great part.
Is he Cooper?
You'll have to watch it.
What year was it made?
All right, I'm looking it up now.
I've not seen it. I didn't even know.
2008, something like that. I don't know exactly. I just know I watched around 2007 or 2008.
I haven't. I'm gonna have to find that one because I hadn't seen it with Sid Haig. I'd love to watch it.
Worth watching.
And then there's Night of the Living Dead in 3D.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a Sid Haig one.
That is a Sid Haig one, yeah.
Yeah.
I just found the 1990 DVD for $6 on Amazon. I'm gonna buy it actually.
Doing a little shopping while you're talking to us there, Joe.
Amazon Prime purchasing.
Interestingly enough, though, Night of the Living Dead had its stage. They did a stage show of it here in London about 3 months before COVID happened. So it ran 3 months. I didn't get a chance to go see it, but apparently it was getting really critical raves over here.
Wow.
They didn't like it.
No, critical raves. I mean, they loved it.
They
did like it.
They were talking after BAFTAs and Olivier Awards for it at one point.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Wicked.
I'm sure the staging was amazing for it because there isn't that many rooms that you're playing on. You have the living room, you have the graveyard, and then the basement, so that the staging must be really cool how they were able to kind of manipulate that.
They still should make it into a musical though.
Yeah.
Zombie the musical. But we all know that zombie musicals work, right? They actually can make
and in the
them
apocalypse,
work.
Evil Dead. If you want to see one of the best musical experiences of your life on stage, watch Evil Dead the musical. Bloody fantastic.
I haven't seen that.
The first
either.
5 rows you have to wear. They give you a raincoat because the blood that's splattering off the stage.
Oh my God.
is covering you.
That's
I
awesome.
did see Night of the Living Dead puppet show. That was pretty
Oh,
cool.
really?
Oh, that's cool.
How funny.
It was playing in Milwaukee. It was great.
Well, the thing is, I mean, they even did an opera of it as well, which is played in Pittsburgh.
You're kidding.
The hometown, because I was laughing too. One of the things I noticed was that George Romero actually was doing shorts for Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, which I never knew.
That's right, he
I was
did.
like, what? I was like, how did that spawn from?
That's right, he did.
It's a beautiful day in the bird. It's like, what the hell?
I was watching the special George Romero was on. I believe it was Amazon Prime, and they were talking about doing the Walking Dead, Night of the Living Dead. And there were kids on there. They were actually like 8, 9, 10 years old. I'm hoping it's the same documentary. And they were talking about how these kids that were equivocating this to other nuances in their education. And I don't know how they did it, but it was just all these little kids just loved it. And it's just like, oh, I don't feel so bad. There's other bad parents out there besides me.
Right here. I'm right there with you.
I'm a bad grandma now, but.
So because Shanta mentioned it, the puppet show was actually, it's our friend Billy Olson does it. It's Lumpy's House of What's It is
Lumpy's House of what?
Lumpy's House of What's It. That's who does the Night of the Living Dead puppet show around Halloween every year in Milwaukee. So if you guys want to check him out,
yeah, it's so worth going. It was a great show.
I'm actually telling him now. We just plugged your puppet show.
Now, another thing I find quite interesting about Night of the Living Dead, there's a lot of critical analysis of this film, probably more than any other film out there at the moment. And it's quite funny that whatever country it shows, they come up with their own analysis. And when it showed in Vietnam, they considered the zombies was America's way of laying back and being swept over by letting the Vietnam War happen. And because of the lack of Vietnamese people in it was the way that that they looked at Americans being involved in the Vietnam War, that basically that there is no input from the Vietnamese people. That's how they looked at the critical analysis in Night of the Living Dead. And of course you have the racial overtones as well, but they also say that It also shows the way of the 60s that basically you had a group of people who were basically fighting to stay alive. And you also had the silent majority, which is basically most of the people in the 60s. You had your young who were basically fighting. If you look at the film itself, most of the cast members are quite young. Whether, from Jane Jones up to even the young couple that were fighting. And then you have the older couple who basically don't really want to acknowledge what's going on, which basically is what was going on in the 60s. And then you had the zombies with the silent majority, which they're the mass of the people who were actually sweeping through America and basically not really fighting for change, just was happy the way things are.
Interesting.
So when you look at Night of the Living Dead, it's quite interesting to look at the many social commentaries that this movie has come out with. It's kind of a simple movie, basically. If you look at it on paper, it's pretty much a pretty simple movie. It's, it is basically 10 little Indians with zombies, basically, a bunch of people, in a house setting, they die one by one sort of thing. And, this time you kind of know who the killers are. But but I have to sit there and say that it's probably one of the only films that has got so much critical analysis and been looked at so deeply for a film that basically might not even seen the light of day if basically it didn't take off at a local cinema in Pittsburgh and it was cheap and copyright didn't run out on it.
Yeah.
And actually, on the social commentary, if you guys want to check out a really great documentary, it's pretty hard to find now. I know it was an IFC documentary that came out like 2002, 2003 called The American Nightmare. And they interview George Romero, Wes Craven, John Carpenter, Tobe Hooper, and they all talk about how the tumultuous time in the late 60s and early 70s kind of guided what they were doing with their horror movies at the time. And
it shaped a lot of directors.
Yeah.
Craven
specifically talks about how the Vietnam War shaped Last House on the Left. And it's a really good documentary if you can get your hands on it. I don't know how readily available it is now. So it's
available on Xbox for free.
Is it?
Cool. Nice.
Well, there you go.
They renamed it Nightmares in Red, White, and Blue.
Right.
Okay.
I find it interesting too, because you think about going back to giving death life, right? And so if you think about what was happening with the war and everything, sort of what's going on, that people were dying, right? So you're kind of eulogizing people in a way of saying like the dead will be in front of you, that we're putting it in front of you, and it's how you approach death, I guess, and looking at death and either accepting that it will come to get you eventually, right? Like that's the kind of way I look at it too, from that perspective. Like you can't fight it. Like it's going to come, it's going to get you at some point in your existence, and you can't really fight it,
I guess it.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say the way I see zombie movies as opposed to like a lot of traditional movies is that the nemesis is no personality. So they don't draw anything out of you. The only things that the protagonists bring is from themselves that comes out. And so it shows all the different facets of like the different personalities in that situation. It's kind of like a natural disaster movie where it's sort of a mirror as opposed to a response to a certain, like if you have a villain, they're evoking something out of you, and the zombies are blank and they're not evoking anything out of you. And so it reflects your own traits back to yourself.
Yeah, that's true.
And Joe, that's on Amazon Prime.
Right, oh, it is. There we go. So it is readily available.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to rewatch it.
And Red, White, and Blue.
It's under Nightmares in Red, White, and Blue. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, because I caught it on Xbox. Because Xbox has a habit of giving away videos every once in a while, and that was one of the videos that they were giving away. So you just download it. I think it was between that and the Guild. I used to watch,
it is. I remember really loving it when I saw it back when it premiered on IFC. So I don't know how well it holds up, 17, 18 years later, but.
Oh, I think there's a lot of people that are still interested in all of that. I don't think there's ever been any lack of interest. It's just like, well, Jesse, he's going to school right now, and he said they're always implementing some of the older stuff, or whatever you want to call it. Classic. It always scares me when people say classic rock.
Classic.
Yeah, but they're still using the old stuff in college.
But I also think Night of the Living Dead, for a 1968 film, the pacing's quite a modern pacing as well. It keeps building and building and building and building until you get, until you get to the climax. And I also think if you're going to do a successful horror movie anyway, I think downbeat endings are the ones that seem to stay with us the most. Those movies that have those downbeat endings are the ones that, for some reason, that you'll never forget.
No.
Yeah. Denialism is zombie thing.
Yeah.
I think most people are used to the final girl ending, the survivor, right? And coming back. And it's also what comes back. So the killer's still there, and it's sort of that lingering. But then when it is sort of just bleak, I remember watching Dawn of the Dead going,
yeah.
I left the theater with my friend going, well, that really fucking pissed me off. Like, I was so mad. And I was like, they get away and not really get away. They end up getting murdered. And I'm like, but that's a zombie film. Like,
they just started that final girl stuff like in the 80s, though, did they not? Yeah. And that's when I remember all that final girl stuff started.
I guess the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah. The final girl, I guess, they're around during the Gallo. Stuff from Italy, and the slasher films kind of brought it to more of a fore, but there's always been kind of a fun. It's very rare that the girl doesn't make it to the end. It's very rare in a horror film, actually.
It's usually a girl at the end. Like even Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Sally Hardesty's the last one. And
why did the truck driver run down Leatherface? That was my big question at the end of that movie. Why did he get out of the damn
I don't
truck?
think he knew what the hell was going on. Imagine driving and all of a sudden, like, what the hell? A man comes with a mask and chainsaw chasing a girl down the highway.
But
what the hell?
If you're that overweight, you might not want to get out of the truck. You're not going to wobbling down the street, poor man. Probably died of a heart attack before he got to the end of it. Under the
Did you see him? He's like, "Fuck this!" He just starts running. He doesn't even try to get back in the truck.
This series and Texas Chainsaw are the two that I think of that has spawned so many like different universes, because every single Texas Chainsaw sequel has nothing to do with any of the other sequels. They're all a direct sequel to the original. All of them are like, we're not going to acknowledge the other ones, but this one. You have Dawn of the Dead, and then you have Zombie, which became Zombie in Italy. Then you had the Fulci zombie movie, Zombie 2, and then that spawned a ton of. So, like, if you were to like do like a diagram of like what Night of the Living Dead caused as far as like sequel and unrelated sequels, it's a mess. It's a tree with a bunch of giant branches.
Well, it was a bit like I'm over here on the BBC. They used to have a documentary series called Rock Family Tree. And so they would start out with like the Runaways, and then the Runaways will become like the Go-Go's and the Bangles and Joan Jett. And then it's like, and then from there they spawn this and they spawn this. And by the time they got done with it, it was kind of, there were so many of them. And that's kind of what the zombie, this movie kind of spawned so much. It's kind of, it would be basically like a huge tree, really, wouldn't it be? So by the time you trace everything up and trace everything back, it'll be a nightmare for anyone who puts it all together.
I was going to say, I find it interesting. Frankenstein, Frankenstein in a way is kind of like a zombie in a sense, like it's brought back, reanimated, but it is overall like how humans treat him, right? So I think if you look at Frankenstein, it was a great precursor to something that is just trying to be. Though it has more conscience than I guess in the beginning of what this would be, where it seems like there is no conscience. It's just a motive or motivation just to do, right? Whereas so I look at that and I say, well, from the storytelling there, it's like you feel empathy for this creature, right? And so in the past, I think if you put a creature in front of someone, people would just kill it, right? When you put it as a human being or it's something human coming at you, you're like, I don't know if I could kill it. Like it sort of again humanizes it, but then you realize the monsters are the people who are in the house, right? The ones that are like, I will do whatever it takes to protect my family, and you kill someone who might be a good person, or you do like you're gonna, it's like, what would you do, right? What kind would sacrifice?
Well, I would surround myself with weak people and then feed them one by one to the zombies. That's just me.
Or he would just chain them up and turn them and be like, they'll be my little guard dogs. You can put them outside,
That's the
I guess another thing that you could. Shaun of the Dead, yeah.
I love that movie.
I guess another thing that you're going to be looking at that when you look at death, what happens in death normally in society is that when anyone dies, the person could be like a horrible person, but we actually, when they die, we turn them to sainthood. They become a saint all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And and then when that saint comes out of the grave and ready to come and feed on you, I guess that's another way of looking at this as well. So.
I mean, isn't it biblical too, right? Like biblically, isn't that supposed to happen? Like some types of raising of the dead, or
well, it happened to Princess
Diana.
Diana. She was a slut, and then she died, and she became a saint. So hey,
it's the saints. They're not talking about Keith.
It's George Carlin.
I won't get say her till after I'm dead. So
George Carlin did a bit on that, like in the 70s. He's like, "Oh, Bill, good old Bill. Bill was such a great guy. Dave, that cocksucker's still alive, isn't he? He owes me $20 if I remember." Great Carlin bit.
The hell of a time to tell somebody they look good is at a wake. It's just like, God, they look so peaceful. It's like, fuck you,
because they're dead and they don't have to talk to you anymore.
This guy does not look good. He's deceased.
I look peaceful too, but I'd have to talk to you assholes.
It must have been the embalming. What kind of method do you use?
Actually, people do look younger when they're laying down. Actually, because it just
well, the skin rolls back, right? Yeah.
Well, the reason why I know that for sure is because I was watching a Gerald Butler film yesterday called Angel Has Fallen, and the thing is, he's starting to look a bit like Angela Lansbury. His face is when he's running around, walking. Like, but then there's one scene where he's laying down. He's like so much younger. He's like, oh, that's the Gerald Butler I remember from 300. A bit like Paul McCartney, he's turning into Angela Lansbury now as well. He's looking more like Angela Lansbury every day.
Oh my god!
The one I learned is head up, chin out, and you photograph a lot better. Head up, chin out.
Take it from an angle.
This brings us to Return of the Living Dead, which is a 1985 American comedy horror film written and directed by dano'bannon. Now, dano'bannon is, if you are a fan of horror, dano'bannon should be one of these guys that you should be praying down to, and we'll get into that later. The film does star Clu Gulagar, James Karen, Thom Matthews, and Don Kalfa. The film tells the story of how a warehouse worker accompanied by his two employees, mortician friend, and a group of teenage punks deal with accidental release of a horde of brain-hungry zombies onto an unsuspecting town over the 4th of July weekend. The film, described in a modern punk comedy, is known for introducing the popular concept of zombies eating brains as opposed to eating human flesh, like previous zombie iterations. It's also known as the first film to ever show zombies running, as well as zombies being able to speak. The film is also quite unique with virtually all other cinematic depictions of the living dead, is that the zombies portrayed in the film cannot be killed by a standard headshot. The film was also notable for its soundtrack, which features several legendary Los Angeles-based death rock and punk rock bands of the era. The film was a critical success and performed moderately well at the box office. Its enduring popularity has spawned 4 sequels and turned it into a cult classic. We will now cut to Return of the Living Dead trailer and be right back.
In the dark of the night, something strange is going on.
Did you see that movie, Night of the Living Dead? Sure. They ship those bodies. Well, say hello.
The dead have risen from the grave.
Mister, there's 100 of those things out there.
How many did you say?
100.
And now the question is, how do we get them back into the ground?
Bert, Frank, we have a little problem. 4 left, 10 right.
It's all over everything! Stupid asshole! Watch your tongue, boy, if you like this job! Like this job!
Brain.
Medical science is baffled.
And it's a puzzle, because technically, you're not alive.
Why do you eat people?
Not people. Brains.
How do you kill something that's already dead?
Well, how do I know, Fred? I don't know. Let me think.
It's not a bad question, Bert. In that movie, they destroyed the brain to kill him. Is that what they did?
The brains, right.
Brains!
Brain! The brain! I hit the brain. Oh! Get it off! 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 Get it off!
The military is nervous.
How was your day?
Usual crap.
The police are confused.
Send more cops.
It worked in the movie! Well, it ain't working now. Bring the movie line!
It's not a bad question, Bert. It's not a bad question, Bert. It's not a bad question, Bert.
The return of the living dead.
Hello, welcome back to the Literary License Podcast, and we're now discussing Return to the Living Dead from 1985, and starting with Matthew Brockmeyer. What are your thoughts of Return of the Living Dead?
Punk rock, yeah. But seriously, I got the greatest story for this. So when this movie came out, I was in 9th grade, and my poor mother, I was like already a horror freak, already getting into punk rock. And they were showing it at midnight for the world premiere, or the premiere anyway in Baltimore, where I grew up. And I made my mom take me there. And I dressed up like a zombie. And they had a contest. And then all the winners got taken to Edgar Allan Poe's grave after the movie. And my mom put up with all of it. And we went to the grave. And it was just an awesome, awesome night. And we still talk about it. It was great.
Cool.
That's very cool. Cool, Mom.
And what about yourself, Shanta? What are your thoughts?
I love this movie. It's like one of those classic, like, hanging out with friends party movies that you just want to watch with people, because I feel like it's so much more enjoyable when you watch it with a group of people. And the Cramps, one of my favorite bands, so having the Cramps in the soundtrack just makes the entire movie for me. It's just so much fun. It takes zombie movies and it gets rid of like all the like dark parts of it and just puts the fun in it, I think.
I would say 45 Grave is a great band too.
On Return of the Living Dead, it's like Shanta said, it's one of those movies where like we just all it works better when you just get like a bunch of people together and just kind of all have fun watching it together. I had a massive crush on Linnea Quigley growing up, so
yeah.
This movie, and Night of the Demons, and Witch Trap probably were all, and Sorority Babes and the Slimeball Bolorama, all massive contributors to that, because she's just always like just such a badass in a lot of these. Most of the time, she's kind of a badass, and she is here too. Thom Matthews and James Karen have such great chemistry together. And they play so well off each other. Jewel Shepard is fantastic in it too. So it's one of those. And Clu Gulagar. This is just one of those movies that's just so fantastic and so fun to watch. And it takes the zombie trope and it adds humor to it. It takes it further than Romero did in Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead had like a little bit of it, but this one just went full tilt into comedy. And it still holds up because the humor is just fantastic. I love this movie so much. I love it to death.
What are your thoughts, John?
I love it. I haven't seen this in years, so I was like literally watching this the other day, going, "Oh my god!" And I was like, "I forgot Tommy Jarvis is in this." And I just love again the humor to it. I love that it is one of the first films that introduces that concept of brains being this like necessity to kind of to take away the pain that these poor souls are feeling. And it's such a crafty way of getting people and trapping them and keeping them trapped. And the fact that all the zombies are calling more people to eat. I mean, I love like that whole concept. And I love that, it starts in very fast in the sense, like once that container opens, hell has been unleashed. And I love like the whole, the scene where it affects the corpse that's in the freezer. And then it like, the half dogs. The half dogs. And And just the foreman freaking the fuck out, going, "Oh yeah, I watched the movie." Because remember, he's like saying, "Oh, we don't know if the movie's real, but like stab it in the brain, you know." And it's like, "Well, that ain't working. What do we do?" And then like at that whole scene was hysterical. It's like I would be the same way though. Like, well, that didn't work. Well, now we're screwed. What do we do now? But yeah, I love the film. I love it. I actually want to now watch the sequels after that too, because I feel like now I need a refresher on those, because as I'm watching oh yeah, that happened. Oh yeah, that happened. Okay, now.
The sequels are very maligned, and I think undeservedly so, especially 2 and 3, which, well, two everybody hates, or a lot of people hate, and I guess it's because it went more into comedy, but I've always loved it. It could be because it's the first that might be the first zombie movie I ever saw, was probably Return of the Living Dead Part 2, because it used to air on TV all the time. But yeah, I actually liked them. I watched Return of the Living Dead 1, 2, and 3 all recently, and I liked the first 3. I'm gonna have to revisit 4 and 5 eventually. And Ellery, if you're listening, I don't have very pleasant memories of them, but even you yourself said they weren't exactly the best movies. But still, I have a fondness for them that still, like all these years later, revisiting them, I still love them.
See, I love Return of the Living Dead, but I think the reason why I love it is because I think it has to do with the writing of dano'bannon.
Definitely.
dano'bannon, I mean, he is one of those fantastic writers, whether you look at Dark Star or Star Wars. I mean, he did the miniatures. He didn't write for Star Wars. We did all the miniatures for that, considering that he's a writer, which is kind of bizarre. But one of my favorite movies of his is Dead and Buried, which I love that film.
Fantastic.
He wrote the script for Alien, Blue Thunder, Life Force, Invaders from Mars, Total Recall, Screamers, Bleeders. I mean, he wrote the scripts for all those movies, which they're all like classics in their own. And he has a way of like humanizing the horror film. So even though that in Return of the Living Dead, you have these characters they should be so far out and they basically shouldn't be relatable, but you're finding every single one relatable, but yet they all seem very, very real within their, Linnea Quigley is trash and the punk guy, I forgot what his character name was, but there are people that were like that, which is
back in the 80s. Yeah,
back in the 80s, I knew, I hung out. I mean, in college, I was hanging out with people like that, and they'd be like really scary, and then they would come out with like these things like, come up with these like deep theological things. You're like, what the hell did that come from? But then at the same time, being able to capture the older generation that's in the film as well, and keep true to that character, and to be able to have something so horrific, but to balance comedy and horror at the same time that you're watching it, and still keep you grossed out at the same time, and be able to balance all that. That is a chore that hardly anyone ever is able to accomplish very, very well.
And it goes for the special effects. When they're ripping people open, you could take everything as camp, when they're like, oh, send more police officers, and then they're ripping them apart. You're like, oh, that went from being really funny to being, oh, that's kind of gross.
You watch your mouth, son, if you want to keep this job.
Yeah. I thought the two of them were the best thing of the whole movie. Just the comedy that they're going off each other, and they both, screwed up, and they inhaled all this stuff, and their lives are just going down the shitter throughout the whole movie. And they're still just you make you laugh. I mean, the one-liners, he played in Poltergeist too, and he always plays that dry kind of character. I mean, he's such a salesman, and and I think, what was the name of that company? What was it? You need a, what was it called? It's going to drive me nuts now. The company you need a medical supply. That's what it was called.
Yeah, a medical supply.
Yeah, but the thing is, they had all this crap in here, and then they had that one cadaver in the back for whatever purposes they were going to sell it to a school or whatever, for to autopsy it or something, and that thing just happens to be like that shit coming alive in the freezer. And they're sitting there. He goes, go over there and stand there with this. He goes, hit him with this. And then,
Comes running at him.
Lock the door. There's always that one person that gets pushed into doing something he doesn't want to do.
There's part of me that wonder if that was a little bit improv when he's like walking around showing him like, and then we have the whatever here, and because part of it made me laugh because I was like,
so funny.
I thought it was hysterical because he's just like randomly pulling stuff and be like, oh, that's this, this is the dogs or whatever, like
the sliced dogs though. I've never seen anything like that. I'm going sliced.
Oh no,
dogs?
you do have those actually.
Yeah, you do.
I mean,
for colleges, when you're doing anatomy in
and
college, they have to show what it looks like.
I took anatomy.
Yeah, I mean, we had in medical school we have sliced humans. Humans are.
That's what I saw. The humans did not bother me at all. I did not see the dogs, but we also,
but they're for veterinary schools. That's what you have those for. I mean, when we were in medical school, we had every 4 people get their own cadaver. So basically, so you can practice cutting into these things, and it's quite weird because what they do is they shave off all that body hair and everything off them, and because they're formaldehyde up, they are that yellow color.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you have to wear like Vicks or Tiger Balm underneath your nose because of the smell. So you go in like hungover on like a Monday morning because they always have like beer bust on a Sunday. So then you go to school and you like have to face these cadavers like Monday morning. Like,
I remember one semester my brother brought a dead cat. I mean, it was a cat in a bag with formaldehyde, and he was like, "It's in the garage, so don't open this unless you really want to see a dead cat in a plastic bag." And I was like, "No, I'm good, thanks. Really appreciate that warning."
I mean, I quite like one of the funny thing is that, and the thing is, this is very true that when he says that all the skeletons come from India, why do you think they have such perfect teeth?
Yeah,
and I remember that. And I remember that the skeletons that we used to have in medical school in Tulsa, Oklahoma, were all from India. I don't know why.
Oh my God!
And we used to comment about how perfect teeth they were. So when this movie came out, I mean, I was in college at the time in medical school, and we used to like watch this. And then, of course, the video came out at Blockbusters, and I think we used to go rent it out like every couple of weeks and just be sitting there and just enjoying the hell out of this movie. So.
Well, it is. It's funny. And then when she does, Linnea Quigley does her graveyard dance.
Oh, yeah.
It's just gold.
It's just I love how they're like, oh, she's getting naked again. Like, this is something she just does all the time.
By the way, that poor girl, like for the entire film, is like soaking wet.
Yeah.
I mean, at one point, at least she's got her top, but like the rest is nothing. And that poor girl, the film.
I like the way that she left her leg warmers on, though.
Yeah, she did.
Just in case Irene Cara was going to run into a rendition of Fame, she was ready.
Well, she had the rain.
I know I've made this joke privately with you guys, like in various messages, but Linnea Quigley has to be the cleanest actress in the history of motion pictures.
Not in this particular one.
Not in this one. But she's always in the shower in like every fucking movie she's in. She's always in the shower.
But was she also in Silent Deadly Night as well?
Not in this one, not in Silent Night, Deadly Night, but she's naked in both. But,
I think she got her boobs out in Silent Night, Deadly Night. Didn't she when she gets impaled on the antlers?
Impaled on the deer antlers. We actually recreated that scene in Deadly Xmas. We had Linnea for like one day, and we had Darren Miller from CKY impale her, dressed as a Killer Santa, impale her on like this tiny little thing of deer antlers that we were able to get our hands on.
She's a little bit of a thing. Her shoe size is like 4.5. She's tiny.
It's tiny, yeah. I've met her a couple of times. She's an absolute sweetheart. And the first time I met her, she actually introduced me to David Dakota, the director of Puppet Master 3 and all this stuff. She's like, oh, you got to meet David. You're a filmmaker. You got to meet David. Unfortunately, I didn't last in Hollywood that long at that point because that probably would have been solid. I probably could have started writing for him or something. Who knows? But she's an absolute sweetheart. And actually, I'm now remembering the scene where Trash gets kind of devoured by the zombies.
Yeah.
A couple months ago at work, I work in a restaurant that has a lot of TVs, a lot of games on, and one of the games ended and Return of the Living Dead came on, and I remember turning to the other people and I was like, you know what? Let's not change it. Let's see how long it takes for managers to notice that Return of the Living Dead is on. It was on with the captions. And we basically just left it on. And I remember when it got to that scene, there was like this table of teenagers that was sitting watching one of the TVs. And I heard one of the teenagers I was walking by go, no, because remember, like a minute ago, she was telling him that her nightmare is like about being like devoured by a bunch of old guys. I'm like, holy shit! It actually kept their attention even without sound on. They were sitting there reading the captions. So this movie works on that level too.
Yeah. By the way, it's like she wanted that, so you got what you wanted, and it was like, oh,
Yeah,
well, that's right. It was
she
her
did.
fantasy. It was her
I love
fantasy.
that. I love the kick-ass scene though when she comes out of the fog and she's like, now zombified, and she comes out. That scene was fantastic because it mesmerized the cop. Was it a cop, right? Yeah, the cop enough for her to attack him, and then all of them come running and obliterate them. Basically,
She looks
Night
like a
of the
little
Living Dead,
badass too, though.
one with
the
their boobs
hair.
out. It brought the town out.
There you go. That'll happen.
It struck me.
I have to sit there and say though, the group of people, the group of friends that are in the convertible that when we were introduced to them, what an oddest group of people to be hanging out with each other, isn't it?
I thought that too, because you have like kind of the nerdy guy, right, and then you have
Valley
the girl, the Valley girl, right, and then so I agreed. I thought this is a very interesting like mishmash. It's almost like the Breakfast Club, right? You had the
and you even had the Tom Cruise lookalike wannabe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the same setup as Night of the Demons. Night of the Demons has like a similar group of kids, like the same like kind of makeup of the friend group.
But they get the backstory for that kind of, so it makes more sense.
Yeah, well, yeah, like you said before, you have to have that like kind of like motley crew of people because the zombies are a reflection of who you are. So you have to have people from all these different groups come together. So it makes perfect sense. Like in reality, you can't imagine these people hanging out, but for the purposes of this movie, we need them.
Well, I also think we find out that they're hanging out together because one of them has a car, isn't it? They're using car,
no
isn't it?
gas money.
I think,
and they're going to pick up Tom Matthews.
Yeah.
My group of friends was kind of like that when I was in high school. We had like the weird preppy girl that was just strange, and so she liked us weird punks, and I don't know,
I thought it was interesting though how in like the other one you're saying like you have to see what you're going to do in a zombie apocalypse. Are you going to be there for yourself? And it struck me that in this one the zombies had some awareness because they were saying that they ate brains because of the pain, but
They could run.
not one of them would be willing to sacrifice themselves or deal with pain to save other people. And I thought that was interesting that all of them gave in and were eating brains or would just do anything to further their own agenda.
Right. And they ran. This is the first zombie movie where they're running.
Yeah.
But it also says that they are eating brains to alleviate the pain that they were for being dead. So these zombies are walking through and they're every single step and every single inch of and every single minute of their life is just pain.
Right. I just thought that was interesting that was obviously so overwhelming of a motive for that it got rid of any, I guess we would say, humanity in them.
Well, if you look at patients, our patients that I deal with, who had suffered from rheumatological, they will do anything to be without the pain. When we're talking about, you have to be very, very careful when it comes to medications because they will OD or they will become addicted, and because well, I think that you see it in Requiem for a Dream, don't you? I mean, even though Eileen Bernstein's character is not a zombie, but she becomes a zombie due to her addiction to pain medication because she's in so much pain.
That's true. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Vampires and zombies are the common junkie themes. Near Dark, when the vampire is like withdrawing from blood symptoms and the cop sees him and he thinks he's a junkie and he's giving him shit.
Oh yeah.
Classic.
Yeah, even going back to the Hammer film, the first Hammer film's Dracula, vampirism was treated as drug addiction in that too. So yeah, you're right. That is a common theme. I didn't even put that together yet.
And well, when you see the two, when you see Frank and Freddie turning, it's almost like the reversal of withdrawals, right? They're like sweating, like dying kind of, and then it's like the moment they give in, it's like, okay, we're giving in. I'm gonna eat you now, And the girl,
funny about it though. I
love the girl. Comedy. She was so sweet, but it's like, are you really going to be in the room with them when this happens here? Because you know what's going to happen, but it shows a love and devotion that you have, right, for someone to be there for the person you love. And come what may, right?
Another thing is, if you look at that sequence as well, and you put it into a medical term, that basically what's happening to them is rigor mortis is setting in. And the thing is, there is a disease called scleroderma, or it's a connective tissue disease. And what happens is that we give them a thing called iloprost, which they have to have twice a year, which is 5-day treatment of this intravenous drug that they have to be on for 12 hours for twice a year for 5 days. And basically what happens is scleroderma, and this is actually a disease that you do get, it's very rare, but your muscles and everything turn to stone. Everything starts on the skin in your face starts pulling back through your face.
I've heard of that.
And decaying and everything. And so basically you can't move your muscles. And eventually what happens is your limbs start self-amputating because they go through a rigor mortis project. Ooh. And it's a very, very painful situation. So it's when they're actually sitting there, now picture this, and that normally scleroderma can take, once you get a connective tissue, you normally have about 10 to 12 years left of your life. Now picture having all that done with that happening within the next couple hours, where everything's like sped up to that extent. Yeah. That's what I was kind of watching. I was laughing at it. I loved the way of it. But then when I got thinking about the medical side of it and exactly what's happening to them, it's quite horrible, actually.
Yeah. When they're moving him, and didn't they move him like to look
moving his arm,
like, like screaming. He's like, oh.
Well, if you've ever dealt with someone who was, towards the end of their life, and somebody who's in chronic pain, you'll start to see that change in personality, because just being awake and alive is misery.
Yeah.
So
and exhausting too.
Yeah. So you can kind of see where they're coming from, especially once they're, like Shanta and Keith said, where they have to eat the brain to stave off the pain. So you totally get it. It changes your personality entirely.
I thought it was interesting that they opened the film up with the Colonel too, where he's like such a douchebag to his wife, the poor wife who looks very, kind and like making him dinner. He's such a douche.
Drink and everything else.
Yeah. But it was interesting how they opened that, and then they kind of bookended it right with that scene. You're like, oh, I forgot about him. Oh shit! Like now I know why you're there.
Yeah.
I thought it was quite interesting that basically, I mean, this is John Russo. It was is the roots of a novel that he wrote, which became Return of the Living Dead. But I thought it was quite interesting. Of course, after the success, two really good friends, they have a successful movie, and of course they part ways because they can no longer get together. So basically they both own the rights to this franchise. And I thought it was quite interesting what George Romero did with his side of the franchise, and then what you got with John Russo with his side of the franchise. And even though they're like the same coin, but just two different sides, which I thought was quite interesting, that they just that they gave two very, very unique perspectives of the same.
Yeah, I thought that's. Go ahead, Keith. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I think that's quite interesting when you look at that. There's especially like when you take let's take Return of the Living Dead against Dawn of the Dead sort of thing, and it's basically they're both sequels to the same film, basically, right? Living Dead that they worked on together, and it's quite an interesting way about how two people were working on the same movie and have one baby, and how they spawn off and come out with their own different, and how it spawns off from there. Yeah. It's quite an interesting take.
I think the legal distinction is, I think John Russo owns the term Living Dead. I think that was the legal distinction. Like anything with Living Dead would be Russo, and that's why Romero was just Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Land of the Dead, Survival of the Dead, Diary of the Dead,
Living Dead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I was going to say, and it just you could see when you're talking about the divergence. One is if they stop the problem and were able to contain it. The other one is if they were not able to stop it. And it's interesting they took those approaches. Like one took it as it got the genie's out of the bottle again, right? And the other one is, well, we really couldn't stop it from happening. It just spread and rolled across the country and the world, right?
Well, I think this one's done through chemical gases, and I think with George Romero, it seems to be more of a natural thing. It's not from a man-made. It seems to be something to do with nature or Mother Nature effect. Really, is what it seems to prelude to.
Well, I mean, if you're going from the first film, they don't really explain it. So it is interesting if they just kind of roll with that. Like, we don't know why. It could be an outer space thing. It could be a chemical thing. It could be nature, right? And this one is like they're able to contain it. And it's funny because it's like they were able to, well, I mean, if you took out the first film, they were burning it, so that was like kind of does not fit that part of it. But they had to take the Walking Dead and put them in a canister because they just couldn't kill it. So like, here, let's put it in a canister and we'll deal with it later. And that's how they dealt with it. And then they divvied it out. So it's like 10 go here and 10 go there. Like, why? But I thought that was interesting.
I also thought it was quite interesting now that they basically said that at the end of the movie, basically they think, okay, we contain the situation, we're on there, and then all of a sudden you find out that it's starting an uprising. And this is quite interesting when you look at nuclear testing per se, whether you have nuclear testing in the Southeast Asia, or nuclear testing anyway, and how people think that this, or how the French were doing nuclear testing in the ocean, and how everyone thinks that this is going to be chained into this small area, not realizing that
amplify.
Well, basically, the nature basically sucks up water, basically sucks up moisture from where in the world, and it flies across the world through the clouds and drops down situation. And I always think it's quite interesting, and we do see this on in regular news, how man's ignorance basically thinks that they can contain something that's a natural disaster, and basically don't worry, we'll take care of it in this area, but don't worry, it won't go anywhere because we can contain this, not realizing that wind, water, air basically will travel, sort of thing. So if they're basically if you're nuclear testing in Southeast Asia, chances are that the fish supply and the water and the rain that's falling down, you will have some nuclear waste in it, no matter where in the world you are.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And I thought that, considering this movie's 1985, it's quite interesting that they actually did raise that a little bit. They did give a nod to that, which I thought quite fits our nature versus man theme, for our 2-for-1 situation.
Yeah.
But I also like the arrogance of the U.S. military as well that we have in this as well. How you have people of power have the ignorance of anything, and at the end of the day, the population is nothing but numbers. We don't matter. It was pretty easy. Like, let's not contain it. What we'll do is just drop a bomb on it, and it'll go away.
I found that totally unrealistic.
Yeah, and they lost it too. Like, how do you lose canisters that are just in some storage place of like zombies that could literally create a pandemic,
Why are they hanging on to them?
Or not take it to CDC, right? You take it to
something.
No, the thing is though, things get lost all the time, even today. I mean, it's been proven no matter what government you're part of, or no matter country you're in, that government have a habit of waylaying information and waylaying dangerous stuff that no one seems to know what's gone with. They misplace everything.
Yeah,
it's like the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
They just put that thing in there, and you don't want to open that.
Well, we just found out that Italy basically are having difficulty with the COVID vaccination because they were getting the Oxford one, and that no one knew where it was for the last 8 months. Couldn't find out it was in a warehouse in the middle of Sardinia. They just found it. 2 million vaccinations. They've now gone off because they were in a heated warehouse that no one knew where they were for 8 months. And this is the government.
Gosh. The Italian government's incompetent? No.
Well, I think to be honest, I think every government's incompetent. I don't think any government's free from that. So having something like that happen probably it does make complete sense. Actually, I could see them.
Oh God, they do it all the time, probably.
Yeah, chemical waste.
Yeah.
I mean, God forbid. I mean, look at what happened on the Marilyn Monroe, the Misfits movie. The government sit there and basically irradiated this area. 10 years later, said no, it's safe. Sent the whole crew and everyone there to shoot the Misfits with Clark Gable and Marilyn Monroe, so on and so forth, and Agnes Moorehead, and they all got cancer. They all died of cancer. Every single crew member, every single director, every single person that was there. Because it's fine, don't worry about it.
They were detonating out in the Mojave, and a lot like John Wayne and a lot of those people also died of cancer.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's blown over. You'll be fine.
If you have another arm going out of your body, it's totally cool. You'll be fine. You're good.
It was like Lynchian, like the Origin of Evil episode in the last season of Twin Peaks.
Well, I mean, New York State, for instance, there's the air brakes and where we're from called Watertown. And what happens is the air brakes have been leaking all their stuff into the Black River.
Yeah.
And what they're finding out now, it's starting to come out that the area in Jefferson County is one of the highest cancer-ridden areas.
You wouldn't know it, would you? Oh my God.
And the air brakes is run by the government. It's not a private company. It was a U.S. government facility that were dumping all their chemical waste into the local river supply.
Yeah, I'll give you, for instance, my mother had breast cancer. My father had bladder cancer. My brother had to have a kidney removed because of cancer. I mean, this just goes on and on and on. So something is up with that shit.
Yeah, and Jefferson County has the highest amount of cancer victims than anywhere else in America.
Yep.
So that tells you, the government. So I thought that with this film was quite interesting that you do get this little bit of a nod that, don't trust the government. The government's not, and I quite like that. I like that there is a social commentary that is being followed through in this movie, which I quite like. Which is, they do it subtly, but it's there, and that's what I quite like about Return of the Living Dead. That you do get a lot of. The more you watch it, you pick up these little nuances. The same thing about the skeletons come from India. Why do the skeletons come from
Why
India?
do they have such great teeth in India?
The question
because they don't, I don't.
You don't know. I'm gonna look it up.
I would sit there and say that probably because most of India they starve to death and they don't live past 20. Most of the population.
No.
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, and to be honest, if they're selling their skeletons, they're not going to be the rich society of India now, are they?
No.
so they probably got really good teeth because they haven't lived past 20. That's why.
Maybe it's because they don't really eat beef. That could be it.
What's that?
Maybe it's beef that's rotting our teeth.
They don't have sugar. They don't have the luxury of buying Coca-Cola.
I was gonna say soda will do it too. No.
So,
I can't drink that.
But it is quite an interesting thing that you consider that all the and it is true that most of our skeletons come from third world countries. Well, how is that? How come these third world countries have more ample values? And the thing is, the skeletons are perfect skeletons. They're not like
they are.
They're not malnutrition skeletons that you're getting. They're not people that are suffering from rickets or anything.
It could also be that people.
Okay, top list for oral health: Italy, Germany, Spain, and Sweden. I don't know how Italy gets away with it because when I was there, I learned to chain smoke because that's all they do is smoke in Italy.
They have free. No, it's because those countries you just mentioned have free dental. That's why.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah,
that makes a difference.
I haven't smoked in 3 weeks. Hallelujah.
Yeah, a lot of people hanging around in cafes drinking cappuccinos at 3 in the afternoon.
They don't drink cappuccino. They drink wine with breakfast.
That's true
they
too.
Drink wine with everything. I just love Italy. The Italians are so fun.
You wino.
I couldn't do that in the morning like they did. And it's just like when you're getting ready to go take a tour or something or go see the Colosseum, it's blistering hot there.
Yeah.
It is freaking hot in Italy. It's just
hot.
What do you think this would have been like if it was directed by Toby Hopper?
Yeah, he was supposed to. Why did he pass on that?
Because he went and did Life Force instead.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it would have been.
I think he wanted to be in England. He wanted to be.
I think it would have been tweaked a whole lot. I would think it would have been a different movie. It would have been a whole different movie.
It definitely would have been a different movie. Yeah.
I quite like. I think I actually preferred it. I'm thinking about it. I don't think Toby Hopper would probably done it justice. Really, I think O'Bannon. Well, O'Bannon. The thing is, if you look at what he's directed, like Dead or Buried, and this film, and some of the other stuff that he has directed, he has a very, very unique way of storytelling that basically it has kind of a documentary feel that he brings with his work. I mean, Dead and Buried does have a really weird kind of documentary feel about it. This movie has that same kind of feel to it, and some of his other films as well.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre kind of has that documentary vibe to it.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
So, but if you look at the other stuff he did, like Poltergeist, Invaders from Mars, Life Force, Eaten Alive, he kind of went away from that kind of situation, I suppose.
And then for a second, I was going to say it wouldn't have the sense of humor, but then when you look at Texas Chainsaw 2, which came out the next year or a year or two later, that has a sense of humor that I think is on par with this too.
I think that's also generationally things have started to evolve because you went from having like horror to then comedy horror. Like there was a time where even drama had to have comedy, right? Because it was like, to tell the story, everything had to be infused with comedy. And so
there are a lot of parts of Texas Chainsaw, the original, that are pretty funny. I mean, like, look what your brother did to the door.
Yeah.
I say that all the time, you know?
I mean, I was also laughing at Sally because she's fighting for her life to throw herself out of a window, not once, but twice.
Twice.
I was laughing my ass off. Yeah. I was like, this poor girl is just like tucking and rolling.
I told you my brother made the best head cheese.
Yeah.
Now, interesting enough, dano'bannon did write the script, but he based the diseases of the people dying from a disease that he has called Crohn's disease, which would also lead to him writing the alien bursting out of the stomach situation as well. That's true.
Oh, interesting.
It's all based on his Crohn's disease, which is quite interesting.
Wow.
Is that what he died of?
Yeah, he died of Crohn's disease.
Oh.
In 2009.
Yeah.
I heard it's quite horrible. I know someone that has it.
Yeah, it is. Basically, you have to get your intestines removed and everything like that. So very pleasant one.
Yikes. So on that cheerful note.
It's interesting to see that because a lot of the zombie stuff goes for the intestines. A lot of the original zombies was always like the midsection and then eventually like the head and the brain and all that.
Right. But they did switch up to this one was the brains, which was really funny because everybody says, brains. I eat brains.
Well, I mean, you'll never forget brains. That brains.
I know. And then but they were actually intelligent zombies because they're saying send more paramedics. They knew that they knew enough that they could get more people. So.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And another ode to the punk rock thing. The Butthole Surfers used images from that movie in their. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Buttholes, but they have big screens they would put behind them of all kinds of shit. People getting sex changes, car accidents, fish swimming, but they'd always have a bunch of Return of the Living Dead zombies showing up on the screen.
I have to look them up. I haven't heard of them.
Oh
yeah, they're wild. Like the Grateful Dead of punk rock.
I like Butthole Surfers. I used to watch them in college. I used to go see the.
Why didn't I hear about these guys when I was in college?
Where did you go to college?
I was in New Hampshire State.
That's why. Too conservative.
New Hampshire?
I was in the Bible of the Balco Bells, so they were basically bringing everything through to us. So we got the Cure and everything. It's kind of weird. Back when they were saying like
they were
Twin
pretty
Era
big in the
like
90s.
Oh, they got a Facebook. Yay.
Another thing that's quite interesting about Return of the Living Dead is one of the only first horror films ever were shown at the Academy Awards, which was shown during the 91st Academy Awards.
Really?
Because of James Cameron's death, they were giving a memorial to him.
Oh. Like, we're just going to throw it in the memoriam.
Yeah.
And they chose this instead of Poltergeist?
Return of the Living Dead. And it's also been, hats have all gone off to Return of the Living Dead through The Simpsons and through South Park as well.
South Park, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
and
a lot of stuff.
And also the British punk thrash quartet Send More Paramedics got their name from this movie. So.
Oh my god, that's terrible. Send More Paramedics.
So on that note, let's talk about our final impressions of these two films. Starting with Vix, what's your final impression of these two films?
I love them both, but I have to say I like the second one better because of the comedy relief. Because no matter how many times I watch the second one, watching those two get sick after they open the barrels, and the shit that ensues after that, it's just funny. I laugh at it every time. And I the first one, you got everybody who likes horror. It's just one of those staples. You have to watch it. I won't talk to you unless you have at least once. Because it's just iconic and it's epic and it's really cool. And I've always wanted to go to that cemetery. Now that I know where it is, let's go.
What about yourself, Jen? What are your final impressions of both films?
I would say it would be a grave mistake not to see both of these films.
Yeah.
Intended. The Night of the Living Dead, like I said, I've seen it 6-7 times. Every time I see it, I find something new. It definitely was a foundation for these types of films, and as Keith said, the divergence of the two separating created the different catalysts to other types of universes where this would exist. And The Return of the Living Dead, I'm glad I resaw this again. It's been years since I've seen this film, and I love that it does have a balance of humor and gore and horror, and I love that. I love that films keep you, sunk into the film, and you feel like you're along the journey with them in this. And definitely, like I said, recommend both of them.
And what about yourself, Matthew?
Utterly iconic. They changed the culture. They changed the world in a lot of ways. And they definitely changed me and made me who I am. And their influence is just utterly profound. Great films.
And Joe?
They both are like, these are two movies, like in the horror community. It's rare that you find like people that are like almost unanimous on anything. And both of these movies are movies that everyone almost unanimously loves. It's very rare to find somebody who doesn't love both of them. And it's strange because they did both kind of shift the genre in a different way. Night of the Living Dead is the first one to kind of shift it in this direction. But when you hear people talk about zombies now, they always talk about brains. Brains are going to eat your brains. And that was the Return of the Living Dead is the origin of that. So it's super cool. I love them both. They speak to me nostalgically, and in rewatching them both in the last couple of months, they still hold up. Years later, 50 years later for Night of the Living Dead, and almost 40 for Return.
What about yourself, Shanta?
I obviously love both of them. I love the chance to revisit Return of the Living Dead, which has been a long time. But Night of the Living Dead is always going to have that special place in my heart. It gave birth to the zombie genre, which is one of my favorite genres. I just love zombies.
I love zombies. Zombie everything.
Yes, I will just sit around my house dressed up like a zombie. So it really, that one has that special place in my heart, for sure.
And myself, as far as Night of the Living Dead, it's always going to be true to my heart because it's the start of something, and it changed zombies. It changed horror films from the way that we know them. They became, something. They became a brand new animal after Night of the Living Dead, and I have to give my hats off to George Romero. And I have to, and of course, Return of the Living Dead basically is always going to, my uni years, fun. Getting drunk, getting stoned, and watching this movie on repeat over and over and over again. But on top of that, they're two great films that basically can stand the test of time, and no matter what age you are, you'll still enjoy them, which is kind of unique. And another thing is that you also got these two very, very unique films made by quite boring men, really. I mean, George Romero is not the most alive person as far as when you see him in interviews and stuff like that. He's quite a mild-mannered man. Dano'bannon, I mean, he was basically almost reaching 40 when he made this movie. And to think of the music soundtrack that he suggested to be put in this film. It was his suggestion to put these groups in this movie.
And they were awesome. They were awesome picks too.
So when you look at some two mild-mannered men who basically, if you saw them at the street, looked like they were accountants, they come up with these two great movies and change the fabric of our society. And if you look at today, I mean, they gave birth to computer games, TV series, merchandising, and music, and so much more. And it's because of these two men, basically, who basically changed the way that we look at horror films today.
I want to thank our special guest for joining us, and we hope to have you back again soon, real soon. Spring has sprung, and with it, the tulips, dandelions, and corpses. As you break out the tools from the shed to trim the weeds and mow the lawn, you might want to keep a shovel out in case something rises from the garden. For better homes and ghouls tips, head on over to our website at llpodcast.com to check out all of our social and podcast platforms, listen to all of our past episodes, become a patron, and sign up for our monthly newsletter to read our reviews of books to screen and everything in between. For our next episode, the team continues their supernatural soap reviews of the Dark Shadow series. As always, we'd like to thank you for downloading, liking, and sharing the Literary License Podcast. Until next time, bye for now, folks.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks so much for having me.
Always.
Lovecraft.
It's 3 a.m. Am I just paranoid? Cause I keep hearing bumps and dumps from the basement. My mind's playing tricks on me. Maybe I'm a little bit zombie. Walking around thinking I'm alive. Bumping into things in the middle of the night. Am I alright?
Creepy things crawling outside of my window. Shadows of you in my bed, innuendos. I hear a voice calling, don't know from where though. And maybe it's nothing, or maybe it's something. Don't leave me in the dark. Leave the light on for my heart. Saying don't leave me in the dark. I'm afraid of who we are. Don't leave me here in the dark. Don't leave me. Don't leave me. Don't leave me here in the dark. Don't leave me. Don't leave me.
Ticking time bomb. There's something in the mist. Don't go in there. Everybody knows what happens next. Yes. One by one they start to fall. Some try to run, some try to crawl. And in the end we all dissolve in a pool full of love and acid. No one's laughing. No one's laughing.
Don't leave me in the dark. Leave the light on for my heart. Saying don't leave me in the dark. I'm afraid of who we are. Don't leave me here in the dark. Don't leave me. Don't leave me. Don't leave me here in the dark. Don't leave me. Don't leave me. We don't stand a chance, but we love to dance, yeah. We don't stand a chance, yeah, but we love to dance, yeah. We don't stand a chance, but we love to dance, yeah. We don't stand a chance, yeah, but we love to dance, yeah. We don't stand a chance, but we love to dance, yeah. We don't stand a chance, yeah, but we love to dance, yeah. We don't stand a chance, but we love to dance, yeah. We don't stand a chance, yeah, but we love to dance, yeah. We don't stand a chance, but we love to dance, yeah. We don't stand a chance, but we love to dance, yeah. We don't stand a chance, but we love to dance, yeah. Yeah, we love to dance, yeah. There's some devilish romance.